turn the TVs on. TV. Exactly.
Yes. So this is actually set up on one. This is where the microphone is going to be. If all time they're gonna remove it. So it's just so that they can actually distribute the food. Yeah. No. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Inshallah, today we're going to talk about textual interpretation. This is the first step or the first discussion that we're going to have surrounding on how to actually deal with the nas, right? How do you deal with the text? How do I deal with an ayah? How do I deal with a hadith? What is the way that I use to engage with? And we had mentioned last time that the first step and the most important thing when it comes to engaging the text is what? What is the most important thing when I'm engaging with the ayah or I'm engaging with the hadith? What do I need? I'm sorry? Even before I'm just... Huh? Even before intention. Because I can have the best intention, but if I don't have this, I won't be able to engage. Okay, I mean, all the things you guys are mentioning are very good, but will that allow me, what step do I need to deal with the ayah? What is the first thing I need to do? What do you guys think? I think it's up on the screen now. Can you guys read it? It's probably too small. There is language. I cannot engage with a verse. I cannot engage with the hadith without Arabic. Like someone might say, okay, well, we have all these translations now. Why is the translation, is it good enough or no? So if I'm a faqih, or if I want to be a faqih and I want to understand how to come up with rulings, can I go now to a translation of the Quran, a translation of a hadith, and then derive rulings from those translations? Like why? Okay, I mean, what about the grammar? I think grammar is something that when we, even I asked this question last time, what is the most important thing for me to learn when I'm learning Arabic? Grammar? Vocab. Good. Alhamdulillah, you're paying attention. Vocabulary. What is the purpose of grammar if I don't have a knowledge base of the words? If I don't know what any of the words mean, how can I apply the grammar? Grammar is for somebody who already has a vocabulary base, right? He needs to have that base in order to apply it to something. I have a number of classmates who are actually, their vocab was weak, but their grammar was excellent. They would tell you the fa'il, they would tell you the fa'il, maf'ul bih, maf'ul mutlaq, they tell you how to job, they would tell you, and even the muta'allaq. Like they would tell you all of these things, but when you ask them, say, okay, what does this word mean? What does this word mean? What does that word mean? Or what does this sentence mean? They'd be like, I don't know. So the first and most important thing. So even if we put percentages behind it, how important is me knowing the meanings of words? Like if we had to put percentages behind it, out of 100%, what percentage is al-mufradat or al-lugha, in knowing the meanings of words? How important would you say it is? 10%, 20%, 60%? Okay. So 60%, and then what other sciences would I need to know to help me understand the process of that? You guys mentioned one already, right? Which is usually the knee-jerk response. Grammar, right? That's usually that's important. What percentage you guys want to put on that? Huh? No percentage? 40%? Okay, well, we're at 60-40 now. We've left no room for any other any other science at all. So if we say, let's put 30, so that leaves 10% for what? So, I mean, I don't know how familiar you all are with the different linguistic sciences, but as I know, solve is very important. Solve is basically etymology and how to derive and understand and get to the roots of particular words. In English, do we have anything similar to that, and how to determine the roots of words? How do you, in English, if I want to understand a word, what is a good way? Because I can't memorize every single word, right? This is not possible.
Have you set it up? Or are you setting it up?
Yeah. You're just gonna be playing with wires. I was like, I'm looking at like this key, man. He's like, yes, to set all this up. He has no idea what's going on. So a soft etymology in English, what will help me understand words? What can I do? What can I study? Sure. What language specifically? Latin, right? So why do we study Latin? Because Latin it helps make up a lot of the words that we have today. So you guys know prefaces, like what is it called, prefixes and suffixes, right? How do those change the meanings of the words? Because of a Latin base, right? So it helps us understand that, and that has an importance in language too. A lot of my teachers, they actually said to me when it came to when it came to like understanding language and these things, it's about 80%. So like 80% of the language is understanding the words, and then 15% of the language is understanding the grammar, and the last 5% would be understanding the roots of those words. Right, you know, al-Waraqāt, or if you want to call it al-Masab, or whatever the case might be. But the first and most important thing is are the terms themselves, right? That would be the first answer. And all these things are important for sure. All these things are important to help us understand. And like we said, like understanding the Arabic language is something that's very fundamental. It's something that's very important. But this still doesn't answer the question on how come I can't rely on translations. I'm sorry? All right, so things will get lost in translation. Why? What happens? Okay, so many times expressions aren't going to be a perfect equivalent. I definitely agree with that. What other problems or shortcomings are we going to see? Yeah, the interpreter, I'm sorry? It's more of an explanation of what is going on. Like, what if the translator doesn't really understand what's going on? What happens? Right, it's gonna create a problem. So now what's happened is you have like 3 layers of problems, right, to that, which is why you can't rely on it as a ruler. So when I take a translation of something, it's basically one person's interpretation through a particular lens of a particular wording. And then it's that way that you start having these mistranslations, misapplications, and misunderstandings. And sometimes things appear like that. I don't think it's supposed to be upside down. No, you just said it because it was in the lecture hall. So you guys, if you can't see, just turn your heads a little bit, and inshallah, it should clear up for you. In the Arabic language, there are multiple means, multiple uses, there are multiple sources to get that. And last time we had spoken about this, asking how do I get to the meaning of a word? Even in English, where do I do it? Like if I don't know the meaning of a word, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to a dictionary. In Arabic, what do you guys think? What am I going to do to understand the meaning of a word? Where am I going to go? All right, tafsir, even tafsir is an extension of what science? I'm sorry? So balagha is incorporated into tafsir. So there are a number of linguistic sciences that are definitely part of tafsir, in addition to context, right? So you have asbab al-nuzul, that talk about the context of why and when a particular verse was revealed or a particular surah was revealed. But I want to maybe explore this even a little bit further. Yes. Okay, so the first thing I would have to do is gather all of the uses of that particular word. Yes? If I want to know the meaning of a particular word in the Quran, what is a good way of doing that? I can gather all of the places it's used. What if the word in the Quran is only mentioned once? And there are a number of cases like this. That is so good. Yeah, so the problem is that it hangs in one of the other rooms, and so it's set to be upside down. I'm sure there's a way to turn it right side up. But like such a ghetto solution. What was I talking about? So if I only have one use of the word, right? The word is only being used one time in the Quran. How do I get context for that particular word? Perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back into that society and see how that word is used. What society? Right, so I go back into pagan Arab society and I see how they use that particular word. What pagan Arab works are there that I can compare to or I can learn from? Poetry. And that was the main source of Arabic literature. So when we talk about Arabic literature, when we talk about Arabic works, we have to go back to the poetry. And from the poetry is where we got our definitions. From poetry is where we got our dictionaries. Basically what happens is you have a scholar, and what does he do? He gathers poetry, right? So he'll gather volumes and volumes of poetry, and he will find that word. And he'll look to see where that word is used, and in the different ways that word is used, then he'll come up with a meaning for that particular word. And the same thing applies to any language. In order for me to understand a particular word, I have to see every use of that word so that I can come up with a definition to help me understand what that word means. The most important Arabic sources, I don't expect all of you to know this, but what are the most important Arabic dictionaries? You guys have any idea? Lisan al-Arab is actually a compilation dictionary. So what Ibn Mandur actually did was he gathered all of the previous dictionaries and he kind of compiled them into his. He didn't have, I don't think he has any unique editions. Huh? Yeah, something like that. And all the people before him were data mining. No one? So the most important ones are al-Sahih by Jabari. This is one of the most important Arabic dictionaries. He died 393. You guys know where he was from? He was Turkish. He was actually Turkish. Mu'jam al-Qais al-Lugha by Ibn Faris. He died 395, and he was Farsi. He was Persian. And the next one, before that, al-Asfahani. He was also Persian. Right, so he died 502. These are the three most important dictionaries that you guys will use in order to help you define a term or help you define a word. I would add to this, and this is just my personal addition, is Mu'jam al-Ishtiqaq al-Mu'assir by Muhammad Hassan Jabal. This was a PhD work that was done. It's in 4 volumes, and he basically took all of the words in the Quran, found the roots of those words that had roots, and then he proceeded to define them using multiple dictionaries and multiple sources. He just died, I think, about 7 years ago or so. But it's an amazing work. It really is an amazing work. In addition to these previous ones, so how many pages is each volume? It's 4 volumes. So the last one is 4. The Sihah is in 1 volume. Mu'jam al-Qais al-Lugha, I don't know how many volumes it is. I want to say 2, depending on the prints. Al-Mufradat is 1 volume, and then Mu'jam al-Ishtiqaq is 4.
I'm saying how many pages is it a PhD work?
Yeah. So it was a 4-volume PhD work. You'd be talking maybe 1,800 pages or so. It really is an amazing work. He did an excellent job with it. There's different types of speech, and depending on which scholars you speak to and which scholars you talk to, they will. Oh, I'll put that up. So I can actually use it now. I'll do that. So this is the grammarians, and basically what they did is how they divided speech was into this, and how many of you might be familiar with this categorization. It's not something that's deep. And then in Imam Haramain, he talks about what are the different combinations that you can have. And he says you can have two isms, you can have an ism and a fi'l, and you have a fi'l and a hab, and an ism and a hab. Basically, for example, how the fossil, and this is a classroom. This is two nouns. Muhammad left. This is a verb and a noun. Then you have I don't understand. This is a harf or a participle and a verb, and it's a harf ya Musa. You have a participle ya, which is nida, and then you have Musa, which is the person or the person being called upon or called to. Then this is balagha. So the balaghiyin, or those who study the eloquence and they start talking about how to apply these different things, they have different categorizations too. They have, basically they say kalam, or speeches of two types. There's speech that provides information and speech that does not provide information. What does that mean? It's basically speech that provides information is that these are like true and false statements. Can you guys think of an example? All right, we'll talk about examples. So you have not providing information, you have insha, Palavi, and insha, Palavi, and this is basically this general composition. It's not necessarily true or false. Yes. Sure. So I'll share an example, and then we'll talk about more. So the information, like providing information, like Tokyo is in Japan. But if I said Tokyo is in Russia, that's false, right? So, and that is also a type of information. Yes. I'm sorry. Unless yes, Russia is occupied, is very possible. Ukraine is in Russia. No. So here you provide information, right? And that information can either be true or false. And just because something is a false statement doesn't mean that information is not being provided. The only difference is that information is not true. Here, not providing information, you have actions. For example, run. Okay, is there any truth or falsehood to this? No, it's just a command. There's no. You can't say run and be like, no, it's a false statement. Like there's no there's no connection between something being true or false. Restraint, or don't run, same thing. So this is called a amr, this is called a nahy. This is called an order, this is called restraint. Seeking information. Where is that? Is it there again? There's no truth or falsehood in this particular statement. Or wishing something. I wish I was younger. This is seeking it. You're not really providing it.
Say, I wish I was young.
Sure. But it's more feelings, you know what I mean? So the problem with feelings is what? If someone's sharing what they're feeling, is it verifiably true or verifiably false? That's the problem. Does that make sense? If I said to you, like, I'm feeling upset, you can't be like, that's false, right? and not just that, you can't really say it's true either because there's no way for you to verify. And I remember we were talking about this with dreams in the Testiya class, for those that attend the Testiya class, that the Prophet ﷺ, he forbade lying about dreams. Why? And it's for the same reason. There's no way to what? Verify. And once you fall into that habit, it's very easy to start lying about other things as well. And as it concerns us, like the uṣūl, or those who scholars or legal theory scholars, they say that either it's going to be a talab, a request, or it's not going to be a talab. And what is the difference between these? Again, action, restraint, seeking information, wish, and not talab, giving information, an offer, or an oath. And the reason I put brackets behind here is because this is established to be part of the text of al-Waraqāt. The earlier scholars who explained it, they actually didn't include this section at all. So what seemingly happened was that there are people who explained it and they put this type in there and they thought it was part of the text, and it ended up becoming or being a part of that text. So how does this play a role? This is going to play a role when we actually start deducing and extracting rulings from different verses and different hadith. Because once I determine that something is not a talab, what have I done? Immediately I can do what now? I can't use it to derive a rule. I can't use it to derive a rule. So for example, if I have a hadith, for example, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to Medina. What rulings can I derive from that? Or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made Isra wal Mi'raj. What rulings can I derive from those things? Nothing, right? It's just information. This is just information. These are just thought. Versus the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam obligated. Over there, we know for sure, or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, stay away from it. Or he says, Salli, pray, right? Or Aqimu salah, establish the prayer. All of these are clear commands. And all of these we can derive obligations from. So in action, for example, pray. This is a clear command. Somebody's telling you to do something. Our restraints, like what? Don't drink alcohol. Perfect. That's an excellent example. Over here, I use the example, don't lie. Seeking information. Like what? So, how many prayers are there in a day? Which direction is the qibla? For example. A wish. Yeah, I want to fly. I want to fly. Over here, can I take a ruling from this stuff? Specifically, is there something, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he wishes something, or he wished something, what can we benefit from that? Is there a ruling we can take from that? That here. Now we've taken a rule. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, لو كنت لا أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك. That had I not found it, or had I not want to put difficulty on my nation, I would have ordered them to do siwak and the kulli salah for every prayer. So over here he's wishing something, but we can't take that is an obligation, nor can we take that is a prohibition, but we can't take that it is something that is definitely recommended. So not a follow, something that's not a request, giving information, like we have said, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final message. Over here, there's no rule. Right? This is just a piece of information that we have an offer for something. Here's $100 to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Pay X amount for a camel. That's it. An oath. I promise to teach you Arabic, or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he made a particular promise, for example, it's not necessary that we can take a ruling from those scenarios. Here, and there are two ways to use speech. There are two ways to use speech. You have literal, and what is the other way? Figurative. And literal is something that you take at face value, and figurative is something that it's not taken at face value. Very simply. Can you guys give me an example of something that's literal and something that's figurative? We'll use the verse of i'tikaf. لا تباشرهن وأنتم عاكفون في المساجد. Don't touch them when you are making i'tikaf in the masjid. Like touching here, this is figurative, or is it literal? Okay. And it is applying to what? Intimacy. Right? It's applying here to intimacy, or it's applying here to intercourse. Okay. So that's a figurative example. Then another one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا تجعل يدك مغلولة إلى عنقك ولا تبسطها كل البسط. He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't place your hands on your neck and don't open them fully. What does that mean? Okay. Don't put your hands like this, and don't be like this. So is this a prohibition from me walking around like this, or walking around like this? No? What is it? Of what? Sure. Or, I mean, here, let me give you an example in English. Don't walk around tight-fisted. What does that mean? Don't be? Tight-fisted is less to do with rigidity and more with what? Stinginess. Right? It has to do with stinginess. So over here now, if we apply the same, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't put your hands on your neck and don't open it fully. What does it mean? It has to do with money. And what do the two figures of speech mean? Putting my hands here means what? I'm being stingy. Like, I'm not giving anything. Like, and if I'm opening my hands fully, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't open your hand fully either. What does that mean? Don't be expensive. Don't give away everything. So do you guys see like how this and how does this change rulings? How does this change understandings? And where does this become a problem for some people? When it comes to polemic discussions. So when you talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's essence, how do you deal with it?
There are different schools.
Yeah, there are different polemic schools on how to deal with it. And they've dealt with it in different ways. So for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he says, like what prevented you from bowing or prostrating to the one I created with my own hands? How do we deal with that verse? Literally?
The two camps.
Okay, what are the two camps?
After you said literally, meaning Allah is mentioning them, and we don't imagine what they are. Take it as one of the at the face value.
Okay.
That's why we used to say no, Allah meant he is something else,
Mhm.
and like he participated, he himself was involved directly.
Sure. Okay. Let's use it in English, right? In our daily speech. If I said to you, I made this paper airplane with my own two hands. What does that mean? It's different. What does it mean though? In English. It means, so I'm trying to prove that I have hands when I say that. I made it myself, right? I made it myself and I put special care into it. Right, this is how we use it in English. If I say I did something with my own two hands, it means that I made it myself and I made it with care. Do you think that's very far-fetched for something like that to translate into Arabic? Probably not. And the two camps, the camp of what you mentioned, this is actually a very Taymian understanding of it. Because he has something that's called a lovely, I don't want to get too much into it, but basically historically there were two camps. The two camps were either you did taqweed, like Allah A'lam, we don't know. Like even the word we don't mess with. Versus in the Taymiyyah, said no, you actually have to use the word. But classically they would say no, and in other ones they said, okay, well, it's actually really easy. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. And what does a metaphor mean? Metaphor can mean depending on the context. And how do I determine what a figurative meaning is? What would I need to do? It's very similar to how I determine what a word is. What do I need to do? Okay, context. Where do I find context? I have to go back to pagan Arabic literature. If I go back to pagan Arabic literature, I can find similar constructions. And wherever I find those similar constructions and that similar wording, I can now apply it to this. And this is again, these are the two camps. Some of them will be like, we're not touching that. Right? That was one school of thought. Like, we're not touching it, we're not explaining it, Wallahu a'lam, we don't know what it means. That's the classical Hamidi school. And with some people call it Athari now. And then you have the Ash'ari and the Maturidiyya. What do they say? They say, hey, there's a context sense there. Historically, it was used in this way. It's very clear that there's a metaphor that's intended in this verse. Yeah.
Some people don't deny the meaning.
Yeah, that's very Taymiyyah. So that's from Ibn Taymiyyah. From Ibn Taymiyyah onward, before Ibn Taymiyyah, nobody held that view. Yeah. He's the one that I don't want to say created, it's probably not the right word, but he's the one who actually he's the biggest proponent, it's the one that actually started that view. Otherwise, classically, the Hanabila, they did the view. They were the ones who were like, well, we don't know what it means. Even the Ash'ari and Maturidiyya, honestly, all of them, they start with this base, saying that we don't know what it means. But the Ash'ari and Maturidiyya, they'll take it another step, saying unless there's context. Right? If there's a context there, then we have no problem exploring. Otherwise, all of them would be like, if there's no context, Allah, we don't know what it means. So here, there's students in the classroom. This is very literal. Is there any figurative speech here? No. But at first I said he's tight-fisted, which means he's cheap, or I said he's an ox. What does that mean? Huh? Right, he's big and strong. Right, so if we say somebody's big and strong, is every single ox big and strong? What if the ox is sick? Right? Right, it's just a general statement, meaning that there are certain characteristics that an ox is known for, and not just that, is it known for in a negative way or a positive way? In a positive way, right? But versus if I said he smells like a skunk, am I talking about, or yeah, maybe that's not a good example. It's like, oh man, he's a skunk. When I say he's a skunk, do I mean like, because skunks are very intelligent, you know what I mean? Like they go through, is that what I mean when I say somebody's a skunk? Like, how did you guys know that? Huh? Okay, common knowledge, what else? Cultural, right? You know cultural, like there's a cultural use for particular terms, there's a cultural use for particular animals. There are some animals that are considered praiseworthy, and some animals that aren't. Like for example, in I guess in American culture, an owl, how is an owl used? Right, it's considered very wise. Interestingly enough, in Pakistani culture, an owl is considered a very stupid animal. No, I'm being very serious. It's gonna, why? Because they're like, oh, look how wide-eyed it is, it looks so stupid, right? So it's always shocked. And it's amazing, like the cultural perception that's there. That you have one culture, if somebody was called an owl, you'd be like, you know, you think you're really wise, but if somebody called you an owl in Pakistan, it means that they think you're an idiot. So this cultural context is something that is very important, and it's very necessary. And this extends into pagan Arabic literature in order to help us understand what it is. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to people who spoke that language, who used those terms, who used that terminology. I think one of the verses we discussed before too, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's statement, يَوْمَ يَكْشَفُ عَنِ السَّاقِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the day where the shins will be revealed, or the day the shin will be revealed. And I think we spoke about this before. Over here, some people, they took it, I think you were here for that discussion. But some people, they said they take it to mean what? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show his shin on that day. There's some people who take that meaning. Ibn Abbas, he says that this means shiddat al-kab, that it means a hardship, that it means difficulty. So over here, where did that come from? Because that's how the Arabs use it. Like for example, in our culture, if I'm getting ready to do something, I say, hey, let's roll up our sleeves. Right? You remember this one? Let's roll up our sleeves. David is wearing a t-shirt. If I told him, hey, let's roll up our sleeves and get to it, is it a misapplication because he doesn't have a long sleeve shirt? And I want you guys to think about that. There are certain things that you can say that might not physically even be possible. So for the same example with the paper airplane, if I was one-armed or one-handed, and I said, I made this with my own two hands, I'm not doing it to establish the fact that I have one or two hands. I'm doing it to show that I gave purpose and I gave care and I did it myself, right? This is the reason for some of these figurative statements. It's important to keep these things in mind. He goes on to talk about different understandings for literal meanings. And he talks about the linguistic meaning, he talks about the haqiqat al-lughawiyya, haqiqat al-shar'iyya, haqiqat al-urfiyya. All of this is just there are different ways to represent terms. There are different ways to represent words. Some of them can lead to the same thing, some of them can have different meanings. The word salah, you guys know what the word salah was used before Islam. It was used by the pagan Arabs. What did it mean? Do you guys know? Yeah, that's part of the root, right? Salah is part of that. Salah is part of that connection. But essentially, what was it used for? It was used for dua, right? It was used for dua. And after Islam, what was it used for? Right, the 5 daily prayers that we use. So both of these meanings. So when we say, for example, when we say for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we say salatu wa salamu alayhi. Does that mean we're praying to him 5 times a day? Or the prayer that we know that has ruku and sujood? So over here, what meaning is applied? The dua, right? This is the linguistic meanings actually applied. And that's what it means when we say salat wa salam ala nabi. That we're making dua for the Prophet, we're seeking blessings for him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because if you translate it literally, right, it says Salah, like to pray, Allah. Allah is praying. Does that make sense? Huh? Allah praying makes sense? No, it means Allah is sending blessings. He's sending blessings to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it does have an application, right? It does have an application. It does help give us some insight on how to deal with some of these terms and some of these differences. But sometimes these things come out of that usage. Does it apply to sentences and terms as well? Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about some of the things where we exaggerate sometimes. Yeah, just give me a second. Right? We use that. Just give me a second. Do I literally mean that I need you to look at your watch and time me for 1 second? No. It means what? Give me a short amount of time. Give me a short amount of time, and I'll get back to you. Give me a couple days. Do I mean after 48 hours that I'm going to get back to you? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that I'm going to get back to you in a longer span of time. So all of these are definitely ways to do this. I called you 1,000,000 times. Really? Like 1 million? You know what I mean? Then obviously these things don't happen. These are different types of exaggeration and different types of figure of speech that we use to communicate with each other. And this is something that's, again, important to keep in mind in order to help us understand how to derive and how to deal with rulings. How do these rulings change? These are some of the things that we need to explore. These are some of the things that we need to talk about. But the most important out of all of this discussion, and the biggest focus of most of the uṣūliyin is around these. Al-awamir wa nawahi. The commands and the prohibitions. Because it is the easiest to take rulings out of these two things. There are certain rulings in the Quran where it's very clear that there are obligations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, establish the prayer. This is an obligation. Like, do we have an example of a recommendation in the Quran? Like what? Okay, give charity. So, but that is also a request. Yes? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to give charity. How did it become a sunnah? How come it's not an obligation? Where'd you get that from? Where'd you get that from? Do you understand? Like, all of these require more exploration. Not just that, we have some orders in the Quran, an order that is showing something that is permissible. فَإِذَا حَلَلْتُمْ فَاصْطَادُوا. When you come out of ihram, hunt. The request. They hunt what? Is it an obligation for me to hunt after I come out of ihram? No. Is it recommended for me to hunt after I come out of ihram? No, it's not even recommended. It's what? It's mubah. It's permissible. But all three of these are examples of requests. So what happened? And that's where all of this is looked into by the uṣūliyin, by the fuqaha. So the legal theorists and the scholars of fiqh, they look into these issues to help them determine the rulings on different things and on different issues. And inshallah, in the coming weeks, we're going to spend more time dealing with this and talking about this. I didn't get any new responses for the classes, but I spoke to the admin and they felt it would be better to actually have the class on the weekends after Salat al-Asr. So after Salat al-Asr on Saturday and after Salat al-Asr, inshallah, on Sunday. Since you guys are here first, you guys get to decide if you want to have the class on Saturday or Sunday. With Tazkiyah, so it'll be one of like whichever class is on Saturday, the other class will be on Sunday. So if we have the Tazkiyah on Saturday, we will have uṣūl on Sunday. If we have uṣūl on Saturday, we'll have Tazkiyah on Sunday. Did I just say the same thing twice? Okay, if you want to just keep the same order, and then maybe a quick show of hands. Who wants to keep the same order? Same order is uṣūl Saturday, Tazkiyah Sunday. Okay, and I need to see like real hands. I can't, you know. We'll just do that, inshallah. Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah. Sure, sure. No, I totally understand. So the reason that I want to put it one class a day is because we'll finish close to 6 and that'll still give everybody 2 hours to, to go make a thought or do whatever it is that they want to do that campus. Right. Or the other option is like, I don't know. I guess it's easier for some people because they had asked, let me end this, it's not my language and that.